Before we dive into this story that's sure to move you, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. It might seem like a small thing, but that simple action makes a huge difference. It's what keeps this channel going and gives me the strength to keep bringing these stories to you. Now, take a deep breath, because what comes next is powerful. I'll pay for him. Everyone on the bus turned to look. A waitress, exhausted, underpaid, barely holding it together, was reaching into her pocket for her last coins. She was paying the fare for a man in a suit who'd just been humiliated by the driver for having no money. What no one knew was that this man was William Stone, one of the richest men in the city. But at that moment, he was just another helpless soul, and what she did would change both their lives forever. Hours earlier, William had everything: his car, his phone, his power. And in one moment, a wrong turn, a group of robbers, it was gone. Stripped of everything, he walked through the city like a ghost. No one stopped to help. No one even looked at him. Until that bus. Until her. When the driver scoffed at him and called him a liar, William stood frozen. For the first time in his life, he had nothing to offer. That's when she spoke. Julia didn't ask for his name. She didn't care who he was. She just saw a man in trouble and chose to help. She didn't expect thanks. She didn't expect anything. Her eyes were tired. Her clothes smelled like coffee and grease, but her heart was wide open. William stared at her, speechless, not because of the gesture, but because no one in his world had ever done something like that without expecting something in return. That night, in his penthouse with the city skyline outside his window, William couldn't sleep. The room felt colder, bigger, emptier. He kept replaying that moment, her voice, her calm, the softness in her eyes. She didn't know he was rich. She didn't care. And for the first time in years, someone saw him, not for what he owned, but for who he was when everything was stripped away. The next morning, William did something he hadn't done in years. He took the bus. Same line, same time, hoping, maybe foolishly, that he'd see her again. And he did. Julia stood at the stop sipping cheap coffee from a plastic cup, earbuds in, eyes closed. She didn't notice him at first, but when she looked up, their eyes met, and she smiled, not because she recognized him as someone important, but because she remembered him as someone who needed help. William sat near the back, heart pounding like a kid's. He'd made billion-dollar deals without blinking, but this was different. He wasn't sure why he cared so much. Maybe because for once he wasn't wearing his armor. No title, no suit, no shield. Just a man trying to say thank you in a world that rarely pauses for kindness. When Julia got off, he followed, trying not to seem obvious. And as she turned into a small corner diner, he made his decision. The bell over the door jingled as William stepped inside. The smell of coffee, burnt toast, and dreams barely held together filled the room. Julia was behind the counter, tying her apron. When she saw him, her head tilted, surprised. "You again?" He smiled nervously. "I owe you a coffee, and probably a whole lot more." She laughed, brushing a loose strand of hair behind her ear. "It was just a bus fare." But William shook his head. "To you, maybe. To me, it was everything." They sat at the counter, two strangers with nothing in common, and yet something unspoken between them felt safe. William asked about her life. Julia answered with shy honesty. She worked nights, studied business administration, and dreamed of opening a bakery someday. "A place people come not just for coffee, but for comfort," she said. William listened closely, absorbing every word. He wasn't used to listening. He was used to being heard, but this time he wanted nothing more than to hear her story. Over the next few days, William kept coming back. At first, Julia thought it was a coincidence. Then she realized he was choosing this place, choosing her company, over everything else. "A billionaire pretending to be a regular?" she teased one morning, sliding him a coffee. He chuckled. "Maybe I'm just a man figuring out what really matters." There was something about the way he said it that made her pause. Not flashy, not charming, just honest. They talked every morning. About everything, about nothing, about dreams, about fear. Julia opened up about losing her father young, about watching her mom hold everything together with threadbare strength. "That's why I don't waste help," she said, "because I know what it costs to give it." William listened, stunned by her quiet resilience. She had less than he ever had, but somehow she carried more wisdom than anyone he'd ever known. But Julia, too, began to notice things. The way William avoided questions about his work, the subtle confidence in how he spoke, the way he always paid in cash. She knew he was hiding something, but she didn't press. "Everyone's running from something," her mom always said. Still, part of her wondered if she could trust someone who didn't trust her with the truth. That doubt stayed with her, even when her heart started to soften. Then came the breaking point. One evening, Julia was cleaning tables when she glanced at the TV mounted in the diner. There he was, William Stone, impeccably dressed, standing on the red carpet of a luxury hotel launch. Cameras, reporters, applause. She froze. Her hands trembled. Everything made sense now. The way he carried himself, the way he looked at her like her world was a novelty. He hadn't just left things out. He had let her believe he was someone else entirely. Julia stormed out of the diner that night, heart pounding. She didn't know if it was betrayal or just disappointment, but it hurt. She had trusted him, and he had let her think he was one of them, a man who understood struggle, who knew what it meant to have nothing. But now she knew the truth. He had everything, and he chose to play poor. That wasn't just dishonest. It was cruel. William showed up the next morning, his usual smile faltering when he saw the fire in Julia's eyes. "Why didn't you tell me?" she asked, her voice steady but cold. He didn't try to deny it. "Because I wanted you to know me without the label," he said, "without the assumptions." Julia crossed her arms. "That's the problem, William. You think you get to choose when the truth matters. But for people like me, truth isn't optional. It's survival." He tried to reach for her hand, but she stepped back. "I liked who I thought you were," she whispered. "But I don't know this version of you, and right now I don't want to." With that, she turned and walked away. William stood there, surrounded by the smell of coffee and warm bread, feeling more alone than he ever had in any boardroom or luxury suite. For the first time in his life, he wasn't sure how to fix something without money. That night, Julia sat with her mom at the kitchen table. Her mom listened silently as Julia poured out the story, the lies, the confusion. "Maybe he didn't lie to hurt you," her mom said gently. "Maybe he just didn't know how to be seen without hiding behind his name." Julia shook her head. "I don't know what to believe anymore." Her mom placed a hand over hers. "Then don't believe him yet, but don't stop believing in yourself. You were strong before him. You're still strong now." William couldn't sleep that night. He sat in his apartment, surrounded by everything money could buy, and none of it meant anything. Not without her. He replayed every moment, every word. He thought he had protected something special by hiding who he was, but now he saw it clearly. He had built a connection on incomplete truths, and Julia deserved better than that. The next morning, William walked into the office of his family's empire. His father greeted him with a smirk. "Back to reality?" he asked. William didn't flinch. "No, I came to say I'm done." His father's smile faded. "Don't be ridiculous." William's voice was calm but firm. "I'm not happy here. I never was. I'm building something different now, something that's mine." His father scoffed, but William didn't wait for permission. He turned and walked away, leaving behind the only life he'd ever known. Meanwhile, Julia poured herself into work, trying to forget. But it wasn't that simple. Every time the bell over the diner door rang, a part of her hoped it would be him. And every time it wasn't, she told herself that was for the best. But her heart didn't agree. It remembered the honesty in his eyes when he didn't know she was watching. It remembered the man who sat with her during slow mornings and never made her feel small. That evening, as she closed up the diner, Julia found a letter tucked under the napkin holder at her station. It was handwritten, from William. It read, "You were right. I didn't lie, but I wasn't honest either. I've left everything behind. Not for you, but because you helped me see who I really want to be. I'm building something. I hope one day you'll come see it. If not for me, then for the girl who believed in dreams." Julia's hands trembled as she folded the letter. Her heart beat faster. She wasn't ready to forgive, but maybe, just maybe, she was ready to listen. The next morning, Julia couldn't concentrate. The letter stayed folded in her apron pocket, as if it were pulsing with unanswered questions. Was he telling the truth? Had he really walked away from everything? A part of her didn't want to care, but a bigger part couldn't stop thinking about the boy on the bus, who had nothing but still smiled with gratitude. After her shift, Julia took a walk without a destination. The city looked different now. Every corner reminded her of how far she had come, of everything she had survived. And somehow, William had become part of that story. Not because he saved her, but because, for the first time, someone powerful had seen her as powerful too. Not pitied, not helped, respected. Meanwhile, William stood on the coast overlooking a worn-down building that faced the ocean. It was nothing like the hotels he grew up in, but that's what made it perfect. "This place has soul," he whispered to himself. He had already started the paperwork. This would be his first independent project. No luxury, no legacy, just purpose. And he knew exactly what he wanted to build inside it. Days later, Julia received another letter. No pressure, no plea. Just a short note. "The cafe space is empty. It's waiting for someone who once told me she wanted to build her own dream. I can only offer the keys. You decide what to do with them." No name, no signature. But she didn't need one. Her fingers hovered over the paper, and for the first time in weeks, she smiled. Julia stood outside the old building by the sea, the letter still folded in her hand. She hadn't told anyone she was coming, not even her mother. The place was quiet, kissed by the salty breeze and framed by the soft roar of waves. For a second, she considered turning back, but then she saw him, standing at the doorway, looking unsure for the first time. He didn't say anything, neither did she. The silence between them wasn't awkward. It was heavy with memories, pain, hope. William took a step forward and gently held out a single key. "This is yours if you still want it." Julia looked at the building, at the chipped walls and the possibilities hidden behind them. Then, slowly, she reached out and took the key. Inside, the space was empty, raw, filled with potential. Sunlight spilled through tall windows, casting golden streaks across the dusty floor. William watched her as she walked around, imagining tables, counters, the smell of coffee, laughter. "Why are you doing this?" she finally asked. His answer came without hesitation. "Because you believed in me before I believed in myself." She turned to him, tears brimming. "And what if I fail?" William stepped closer. "Then you'll fail boldly, beautifully, and I'll still be here." Julia let out a shaky laugh. "I'm scared." He smiled softly. "So am I. But maybe we build something stronger from that fear." In that moment, something shifted. Not everything was forgiven, but something was beginning. The days passed, but something inside William refused to settle. He had everything money could buy, yet something still felt missing. Every morning he walked into the diner, hoping to feel that same warmth Julia had brought into his life, but she was no longer there. He asked around and found out she had taken some time off. No explanation, no goodbye, just silence. And for the first time in years, William felt powerless. He couldn't buy answers. He couldn't fix what was broken. Not with money, not with influence, and certainly not without her. One evening, as he walked along the coast by himself, he saw something that made his heart skip a beat. Julia, sitting alone on the beach, knees hugged to her chest, staring at the horizon. He hesitated. Should he go to her? What if she didn't want to see him? But something stronger than fear pulled him forward. "I didn't expect to see you here," he said gently. Julia looked up, startled, and for a brief second, all the walls she had built seemed to tremble. "I needed air," she replied. Her voice was soft, but her eyes carried a storm. William sat down beside her, careful not to get too close. "You've been gone," he said, almost whispering. Julia nodded, keeping her eyes on the ocean. "I needed to think about everything. About us." Silence fell between them again, heavy but not cold. William looked at her, and for the first time didn't try to fix the silence with words. He let her speak, on her own terms. And when she finally did, it broke something open inside him. "I was scared," she said. "Scared that I don't belong in your world, that I'll always feel like I'm playing a role I never auditioned for." He turned to face her fully now. "Then let's rewrite the story," he said. "Together. No scripts, no roles. Just us." Julia's eyes welled with tears. "Do you mean that?" William reached into his coat and pulled out something small, a folded piece of paper. "I've been writing down everything I feel because I didn't know how to say it out loud. But now I do. I love you, Julia. Not because you helped me when I was down, but because you showed me who I want to be." Her tears finally fell, and then she said the one word he had prayed for. "Me too." That night, they didn't rush anything. No big declarations, no sudden decisions. Just a quiet walk by the water, hand in hand, with the sound of the waves filling the spaces between them. It wasn't about solving everything. It was about choosing to face the unknown together. "Do you think people like us can really make it work?" Julia asked softly. William squeezed her hand. "Not if we try to be like everyone else. But if we stay real, if we stay us, I think we have a chance." She didn't respond right away, but her silence felt like agreement. Over the next few weeks, something beautiful began to take shape. They returned to the hotel and bakery project, but now with a deeper connection. Julia's laughter came back. William's eyes no longer held that old tension. They fought sometimes, over recipes, budgets, even furniture. But the difference now was how they fought. Not to win, but to understand. And through each disagreement, they discovered more about who they were and why they mattered to each other. "It's not about being perfect," Julia said one night. "It's about showing up, every day." And William nodded. That was enough. As the grand reopening approached, they invited the whole town. Flyers were printed, invitations sent. But Julia had an idea, something bold. "Let's make the first day free," she told William. "No prices, no menu, just food. From us to them." William hesitated. From a business perspective, it was reckless. But from the heart, it was genius. "If this is what you believe in, I'm with you," he said. And so, on the first morning of the new chapter, they opened the doors wide, serving pastries, pouring coffee, greeting each guest with a smile. People came, more than expected, and no one left untouched. By the end of the day, the bakery was nearly empty, not of people, but of food. Every cake, every roll, every cup of coffee had found a home. Julia wiped her brow and looked around. The room buzzed with stories and laughter. "You did this," William said. "No," she replied. "We did." A little girl came up to Julia, holding a cookie in her tiny hand. "This is the best thing I've ever eaten," she said. Julia knelt down, tears pricking her eyes. "Thank you, sweetheart." The girl's mother smiled from behind her. "You've created more than a bakery here. You've created hope." That night, long after everyone had gone, Julia and William sat outside the bakery under the string lights they had hung together. The stars above them flickered softly. "I didn't know it was possible to feel this full and this empty at the same time," Julia whispered. William looked at her. "Empty how?" She smiled tiredly. "Empty like I've poured everything I have into this day." He nodded slowly. "And full like? Like it was worth it." He reached over, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. "You're worth it." And in that quiet moment, neither of them doubted it. Over the next few days, stories about the free opening spread through town and beyond. Locals returned with friends, travelers stopped by out of curiosity, and journalists began calling. One article titled it, "The Little Bakery That Gave Everything." Julia couldn't believe it. "This wasn't the plan," she told William. He laughed. "No, it's better." But with the attention came pressure. Lines grew, expectations rose. Julia felt it in her chest, the weight of being seen. William noticed. "You don't have to be everything for everyone," he said one morning. She looked at him, eyes wide. "But what if I want to? One evening, as Julia prepped alone, her mother dropped by with warm soup and quiet eyes. "I saw the news," she said. "You proud?" Julia asked, pretending to stir something. "Proud doesn't even begin to cover it." Her mother paused. "But don't lose yourself in the noise, sweetheart." Julia sighed. "I'm trying not to." "Then remember this. The world only saw what you did today, but I've seen who you've been every day." Julia's hands stilled. Her throat tightened. "Thanks, Mom." And in that brief visit, she found her grounding again. Sometimes the right words are the ones we already carry. The next morning, William walked into the bakery before it opened, holding something behind his back. Julia raised an eyebrow. "What now?" He smiled. "A surprise." She wiped her hands on her apron. "You know I hate surprises." He revealed a small wooden sign, hand-painted in warm colors. It read, "La Dolce Vita, a bakery born from heart." Julia stared at it, speechless. "It's our story," he said, summed up in one line. She traced the lettering gently with her fingers. "It's beautiful." He kissed her forehead. "So are you." And as she hung the sign by the window, a new chapter quietly began. Weeks passed, and the bakery settled into a beautiful rhythm. Mornings began with the hum of the espresso machine and laughter echoing off the walls. William handled the hotel, Julia ran the bakery, and together they built more than a business. They built a home for anyone who walked through their doors. One afternoon, a small boy came in with his grandfather. "This is the place," the old man said, smiling. "The one that gave us free bread when we had none." Julia watched from behind the counter, heart full. She hadn't realized her kindness had traveled this far. One rainy evening, Julia stood at the bakery's window, watching the raindrops slide down the glass. "I used to think small dreams were safer," she said, as William walked up beside her, "that it was better not to want too much." He took her hand gently. "And now?" She smiled softly. "Now I know it's okay to want everything, as long as it's built with love." He nodded. "And when it gets hard?" "Then we hold on tighter." The rain kept falling, but inside, everything felt warm. Sometimes, the biggest storms only water what's meant to grow. Months later, a letter arrived. It was handwritten, sealed with care. Julia opened it slowly. "Dear Julia and William, I passed through your town by chance. But your kindness wasn't by chance. You reminded me that good people still exist." There was no name, no return address, just gratitude. She folded the letter carefully, tears in her eyes. "We're doing something right," she whispered. William wrapped his arms around her from behind. "We're doing something real." And sometimes that's all the confirmation you need. Not applause, not headlines, just a quiet reminder that you're making the world softer. On the one-year anniversary of La Dolce Vita, Julia and William hosted a small celebration. No flashy banners, no big announcements, just coffee, pastries, music, and stories. Locals shared memories. Children drew pictures. One customer stood and raised a toast. "To the bakery that reminded us what hope tastes like." As the sun set behind the ocean, casting golden light across the patio, Julia looked at William and smiled. "This isn't the end, is it?" He shook his head. "No, it's just the beginning." And in that moment, with hearts full and hands entwined, they knew. The sweetest stories are the ones you live. If this story moved you in any way, please leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Honestly, every like, every subscription is what keeps this channel breathing. Without your support, it's nearly impossible to keep going. So if you can help, know that this only exists because of you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for staying until the end. I'll see you in the next story.